everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks and Open Mic. I can't wait for our conversation. I never know who's going to show up, but it's always informative, and I always learn something, and I'm sure you will too. But before I introduce you to our guest today, I want to give a couple of shout outs. One is to Twiddle. Twiddle has sensory products that really can help bring people to a sense of calmness. And this is ideal, especially around sundowning. They also have another product called Adapt-A-Wrap, which is wonderful because there's no buttons or zippers or anything in the front. Somebody can't disrobe. Everything is put on and then sealed in the back. So go to the number 4 and then twiddlesplural.com for more information there. I also want to invite you to join me at the Caregiver Connect group if you happen to be in Minnesota. We meet the 4th Wednesday of each month from 10 to 11:30 at the Shoreview Community Center. And then also I provide an online memory cafe called Arthur's Memory Cafe. That is the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of each month from 1 to 3. Both of those sessions are Central Time. And if you're interested, just reach out to me at radio@alzheimerspeaks.com and I'll get you that information. I also want to give a shout out to Maud's Awards. They have closed applications for this year. But if you are doing something cool in the arena of dementia, check out maudsawards.org because maybe you're going to want to apply next year for their $25,000 or $5,000 gifts. And then last, I always encourage you to go to our site, alzheimerspeaks.com. Check out our free educational resources as well as our book, Betty the Bald Chicken, Lessons in How to Care, and our additional site, which is called Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory where you can search free to your heart's content. And if you have a service, product, or tool you would like to enter, we have both free and paid plans. And I would be more than glad to give you a tour of that as well. So let's peek behind the curtain and see who's here today. Well, I see we have 2 people with us today, so I am very excited to have this conversation. Lance with All Home Care Matters. He and I actually host another show together, Conscious Caregiving with L&L. And then Jeanette. Jeanette I have known through our common friend, Michelle, who works with Jeanette really closely for years and years. Both of these individuals are doing fantastic work, so I can't wait to hear what they have to share today. So first, I'm going to have you each introduce yourself. And Lance, I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourself first, if you don't mind.
All right. Well, thank you, Lori, Jeanette. It's nice to see you guys. I'm Lance A. Slatton, as Lori mentioned, the host of All Home Care Matters, as well as the co-host of Conscious Caregiving with L&L and the co-host of the Caregiver's Journal and the author of the book, The All Home Care Matters Official Family Caregiver's Guide. And it's always a pleasure to see you, Lori. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thanks for showing up today. Jeanette, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Pastor Jeanette Jordan, and I am the CEO and founder of Dementia Dignified Academy. Michelle Mason, who was supposed to be on here with me, is my COO. I'm just happy to be here and to discuss my journey, my story, which all started with my husband having been attacked by what I've coined beast of a disease, BOED, Alzheimer's dementia.
Wonderful. And I'm so sorry to hear that Michelle is without power due to goofy weather and a tornado, so I'm just glad she's safe, and hopefully that power will go on sooner than later because that's not fun being without power for sure. So, Jeanette, I'm going to have you tell us a little bit about your. Let's start with your story with your husband when he got diagnosed, and I know that he recently passed. If you can tell people a little bit of your background, I would imagine that's why you stepped into this space.
Oh, sure. Okay. My husband, Dr. Robert A. Jordan, was the greatest pediatrician on this side of heaven. Uh, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016. However, um, in retrospect, I went back and looked and realized that he had shown signs way before he was actually diagnosed. As a matter of fact, I started to journal in 2014 about the things that I saw that were just not who my husband was. I realized that he was having some cognitive impairment, and uh, but my whole story goes back to the fact that I stayed. I call it staying in the closet for all those years from 2014 to 2016. I just was in denial that what was happening to my husband was happening. Him being a well-known pediatrician, an awesome clinician, loving what he did, an awesome family man. My husband at that time probably was 55 years. This could not be happening to him. So I just ignored it. And he was so crafty that he was able to convince me, his clinician, his primary care physician, his specialist, that nothing was wrong with him. Just the fact that he was preoccupied was concerning other people. He was saying, but you know, I'm preoccupied. And so doctors are preoccupied. And so that's just the way it is. And so it took all of the times that I was caring for him or watching his decline, it took all of that time before I could convince him that he needed to get a definitive diagnosis. And although he went screaming and hollering, I had to start telling him therapeutic lies to get him to cooperate with my request. And one of those, when I wanted him to go to the doctor, I had to say that we were going to the doctor, maybe for an annual visit, or we had to go to the doctor for a blood pressure check. And when I said we, that he would go along. But of course, in advance, I had called the physicians or his specialists to give them heads up of what I was observing. And based on that is when in 2016, we got him to go to a neurologist. And I told him that we both needed to have, because of our age, we both needed to have some cognitive assessment. And he agreed, and he was given a battery of exams. And of course, they came back that he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And we then in 2016, in January, began to prepare to shut down his practice because he was still practicing medicine. He was still on target. He was still able to make his diagnosis. He was still writing prescriptions. But one of the odd things that he was doing, that after he would examine a patient and do all that he did, he'd tell him to get dressed and he would come back with the prescription, but he would tell him to get undressed again. He had forgotten that he had examined the baby. So when we realized that these things were going on, we started to definitely prepare to retire him. So by July 1st, well, June the 30th of 2017, we had done what we had to do to retire him. The journey then continued. I became then his primary caregiver, and not knowing at all what I was headed for, not knowing at all how this journey was going to pan out, how I was going to navigate. So a lot of the stuff I did wrong. A lot of the ways that I treated him or responded to what was going on was definitely wrong. So I began to depend on the Alzheimer's Association. That 1-800 number became my best friend. The 36-hour day became my best friend. Joining a support group became my self-care, knowing that I wasn't all by myself. And then I began to tell my story, just like I'm telling it now.
Okay.
And then the Alzheimer's Association began to ask me to speak, to talk about my journey. And I did. And people were empowered to do this thing, this journey, take care of their loved one with grace and with joy and with peace, and knowing that they had to be in the moment, they had to be present, and they had to realize that that diagnosis was not their loved one. My husband was not his diagnosis. My husband still was the love of my life. And so I cared for him throughout. I eventually had to place him in a long-term care facility. And I encourage people that sometimes you have to give yourself permission to do that. We had been married so long that I had always said that my vows are for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, till death parted us. And that in sickness and in health to me meant I was going to care for him at home. I was going to do that all by myself. And I quickly realized, well, not so quickly, but in about a year and a half, I realized I could not do it. I could not do it by myself. And I had to talk to my children. I have 5. And they were journeying with me, but they saw that I was trying to do it by myself. And when I realized that I couldn't, and he was becoming aggressive, and I was not going to be able to handle that, I gave myself permission to place him in a long-term care facility. That's where my journey really, really took a turn, because I realized that those in long-term care facilities don't know how to care for folks that are living with Alzheimer's and dementia. They have memory care floors. They have people who are supposed to be knowledgeable in the care of people with Alzheimer's or dementia, and they are not. So I began to start doing my own clinical trials and the things that I did to help my husband through this arduous journey. And the things that I did that worked, I shared them with the family members of people who were in that long-term care facility. I tried talking to the folk at the long-term care facility about just simple things, like giving my husband water, because he doesn't know he's thirsty. He's not going to ask for water. And I even asked the doctor, would he make that water order? And he told me no, because that's not what he does. That's a dietary thing. And I realized that, you know what, I got to step up and I have to be the mouthpiece for my husband. And so I started ordering them around as to how they were going to care for my husband. So it all panned out to when it was all said and done. I says, I'm going to start an academy. My husband needed to be cared for with dignity and respect and with honor. And not only my husband, now I'm advocating for everyone who's going through this journey with me, empowering them to advocate, be present. If you see something that you know is not quite right, speak up. You have that right. The patient has the right. And so what I do now is I train caregivers and clinicians, social workers, professionals on how to care for people who are living with dementia and Alzheimer's, because it's a specialized kind of care. It's very unique. It's not like if you are living with cancer, not minimizing those conditions, but a person living with cancer or diabetes or those types of illnesses, they can speak for themselves. My husband could not speak for himself, and the folk that are living with dementia or Alzheimer's will eventually not be able to speak for themselves. They won't be able to tell you if they're in pain. They won't be able to tell you if they're hungry. They won't be able to tell you if they have pooped on themselves. So you have to be present, and you have to make sure those who are caring for them know that, and they too now are in the present with your loved one.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, well, that's a lot. Now, you and Michelle have a church group too, support group that you do. I'd
Yes, we
really
do.
like you to talk about that, because that is such a need out there, and I'm just surprised we're not seeing more of that happen. I mean, I see it here and there, but I just think it's a much larger need than what is available to the public.
Absolutely. The Alzheimer's Association, because Michelle and I are community educational facilitators, they asked us in 2020, especially, during the shutdown, the support groups were no longer able to meet face to face. So they asked us would we do a virtual support group. And so in 2020, Michelle and I started our Women of Faith caregiver support group. And it's been going on since 2020. We've changed the name to include men. So now it's Women and Men of Faith Caregiver Support Group. And it started as a support group for local those who live in Chicago. But we found that because they put it on their website, people could go and click on that and join our support group. So we have people all over the world, really, that come on that support group every fourth Saturday of the month from 2 to 3:30 Central Standard Time to just talk about, what they're going through, to hear the stories of other people on that platform, to have testimonies told. And we also have started to bring on professionals, people who have some connection or affiliation with those who are living, with Alzheimer's. We have attorneys to come on to talk about advanced directive or power of attorney. We have people who will say, let's do exercises for the caregiver. So they come on to talk about how self-care is important. So we just have a multiplicity of people that come on to help us, to help those who need the support that they need for the journey. We never know how long that journey may be. It could be for, a month. It could be for 10 years. So you need that ongoing encouragement, that ongoing connection. And so those that join the support group, we tell them it's not Michelle and I support group. Although Journey to the Cross Ministries, where I'm pastor, yes, we talk about our spirituality, but that support group belongs to the people who come on the platform. And so they're friends. They even come out now. They come out to the events that Michelle and I do in senior communities and other areas of education on this poet of a disease. So that's what we're doing. We're just doing so much stuff to get the word out. And Lori, especially in our community, in the African American community and the Latino community, we don't talk about it. We do not talk about Alzheimer's or dementia. We don't even know the difference between the two. So of course, we go out and we educate them on the warning signs and what dementia is. Dementia is the umbrella. We talk about all of those dementias that fall under that, Alzheimer's being the most prevalent. But I've been on radio talk shows. I've been on television shows. I have written, my book came out of that journey of compassion. I hit the ground running. Michelle and I are on the planning committee for the Alzheimer's Association. They do an African American conference on Alzheimer's and dementia every year. This was our second year, 2023, and Michelle and I are very active on that committee, that planning committee. And as a matter of fact, Michelle and I won the Caregiver Award of the Year for 2023. I won the Caregiver Award for Family. And then Michelle won the Caregiver Award for being the professional in the industry. So our voices are being heard. We're in action, and we're just excited about what we're doing. And that's my lifelong advocacy until I join my husband in those heavenly realms. I'm going to make sure that I advocate for families and their loved ones on this journey.
Okay. And what year did you say you guys won the award?
2023. It's not even the year yet. 2023. Okay. Yes.
Because I saw the picture of that, and I was wondering what that was for, and I was wondering how you guys, kind of mesh together and things. Sounds like you're really doing a lot of exciting work. Now, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you? Do you have a website, or is it through your Facebook page? Or
oh yes, we have a website. Our website is www.dementiada.org. www.dementia, D as in dog, A as in apple.org.
Okay.
Or our email address is dignified@dementiada.org. So if they go to the website, it just has like everything there, how you contact us.
Okay.
But those are the two best ways. So once they can use that website to get invited to the support group meeting. They can use that to get us to come out to do educational training or to talk about our workshop. So, and we're very, very present, and we'll get back to them ASAP.
Well, I so appreciate your time with us today. This has been wonderful to learn of all your work. I see your posts and things, and Michelle and I go way back, and I just have always so appreciated the work she's done. And I've seen the two of you working together, and I just think it's pretty profound what you're doing. So,
but our academy, in training these professionals and social workers and anyone that needs CEUs, we have CEUs available as if they go through our training. It's a 6-hour training that tells you about our unique, specialized way of caring for your loved one. And after they complete the 6 hours, we award them the CEUs. We connect with an organization or institute called Dementia Connection Specialist University with Dr. Jennifer Stelter is her name. And Jennifer and I met at an event, and we were talking exactly about the same thing. And I found out that she had the Dementia Connection Institute. And then we started to work together. She trained me, and she trained me to be a trainer. And so I'm a certified trainer. And my next training is going to be in November, because November is Caregiver Month. And so I'm going to hold a training November the 14th and 15th to train caregivers who are interested in being just this person that knows how to take care of the loved one. Yeah, and tell people to follow me on Pastor Jeanette Bass Jordan on Facebook. I do a lot of what I do. That's my ministry. So I take people on my journey. I do a lot of inspirational devotionals and just keep people abreast of what's going on in the Alzheimer dementia community.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing. Let Michelle know that we missed her, but we appreciate her work. And does she still go under
Ending Disease is Michelle's consulting company.
Okay.
So we partner together. She sits on my board for Dementia Dignified Academy. She's my right hand. We talk every day. She has so many wonderful ideas and help with our training presentation. But she does the consulting work through Ending Disease.
Okay, wonderful. I remember way back in the day when she did like a spa day, and she had a jazz player come in, and I mean, she
Yes.
did all these really, really cool things that nobody was doing back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
In a professional photographer and makeup
She
artist.
talks so highly of you. So I know you're her best friend. When you said, let's call Lori, and to make sure you tell Lori that I'm sorry I can't be there today, but let her know we had this tornado and I just don't have any electricity. But she tells me about how far back and how you supported her way back then, and she is so appreciative of that. So just know that you are a part of us. And as a matter of fact, she texted you last night. I know for sure that she texted you because we're putting together a resource flyer, and she wanted to make sure we could add your name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. In fact, I got back to her too, and I said, I would love both of you to be listed on Dementia Map, and grab your free listing there, and yes. So that we can help share more of what you're doing. So
we're going to do that, especially. We're going to do that. I'm at that point now. Yes, absolutely.
Well, if you just tuned in, you might want to rewind and hear what we've been talking about on Open Mic. We've been having a fabulous conversation. And again, we'll have all the information for our guests in the show notes as well. We're going to hear a little bit about Q for Good. They are a fabulous company, and I can say I use them as my webmaster, and I have never been so happy with the company. They are so thorough, and their communication is absolutely fantastic, and it's streamlined so you can track the conversations, you can see the progress, and they'll calm your nerves when you get a little rattled. So check out Q for Good. And I know you won't be disappointed. If you mention my name, you can get a 10% discount as well. But again, just absolutely with to deal. So I'm going to pop over to Lance and hear what he is up to. So again, thank you so much, Jeanette. You are just a beam of energy, as is Michelle. I still feel her with us, even though she's not here. And I encourage people to reach out to you guys because I know your souls are in this from such an intimate, compassionate level that I know people will their hearts will be filled after talking with both of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my 80th birthday is coming up in September, and I just say I got about maybe I'm hoping 20 more years. So I gotta hit the pavement running because I'm gonna make this thing happen. My husband's legacy to be alive before I leave this place. Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lance. What all are you up to? You have so many irons in the fire. I don't know how you. I was just talking with Dave Weidrich, who was my partner with Dementia Map the other day, and I'm like, I don't know how Lance does everything he does. You know, he's married, he has kids, he's got a real job, you know, and then he has all, you know, he's coaching teams and he's administering this and he writes for that, and my head gets dizzy thinking, do you ever sleep?
Occasionally. No, it's always good to see you, Lori. Well, as you know, we do conscious caregiving together with LNL, and we had the Caregivers Journal and All Home Care Matters, and then of course the news sites that I do columns for. But I have a passion for it. You know, I was listening to Pastor Jeanette, and it kind of takes me back to when my grandmother first was diagnosed with dementia. I was an 18, 19, 20-year-old, and I was pursuing healthcare, pursuing medical school, but they don't teach you about the caregiving aspect of it. Her story resonates to me from so many points that, it's not just what I went through or what she and her husband went through, but I feel like it's what everyone goes through. And then it's from that experience we all unite and come together to try to help support others who may have not gone through it yet or who are going through it now. Because, far too often we hear these stories with our company where, we'll meet with a family, dad's being discharged, mom's being discharged, whatever the scenario is, and they received a diagnosis of some type of dementia or some cognitive issue, but that's all they got when they were discharged. They don't tell them, how do you deal with, wandering through the night and, sleeping during the day? How do you keep them from, using the restroom and the potted plant in the bathroom and, all these different aspects. But that, even though it's not classified as a healthcare issue, those types of things when it comes to caregiving, it really should be. And you and I have talked to so many professionals throughout the world, literally, and I'm starting to see, and maybe you would agree with this, starting to see a transition where more of the medical schools and healthcare professionals and administrative and executive level people are starting to kind of notice and take notice. We need to do better. We need to start supporting these family caregivers, 54 plus million family caregivers out there, with the resources and the know-how so that they can take care of their loved ones. Pastor Jeanette with her Dementia Dignified Academy, she took this on as a ministry. Before we started all of our shows and things COVID, we would do a lot of work at our churches and our community and do these dementia seminars and have these, 50, 60 thick page books that would cover whatever specific topic was for that day's seminar. And we called it our ministry. And those things were so well attended. You're seeing 100 to 150 plus people. One church that we held it at, actually, the fire marshals showed up and we had to move into their convention building because we had overflowed the sanctuary in the main church building. But that just goes to show us how many people are, I don't mean clueless in a disrespectful way, but they really are clueless as to what to do, where to go, and how to do it. Because here they get this medical diagnosis from a medical professional, and then it's like, okay, now the rest you got to figure out on your own. And so, that's what really drives me. Lori, you and I talk all the time, and, I say it all the time as well. I love doing the shows, but for me, it's not about being a business model or generating an income. I have a wonderful full-time job. I do this more as a mission and as a ministry for myself. And, my family and I were so strong in our faith. I really feel like, do unto others, right? And, it's the whole golden rule analogy, but it's so true, and hopefully that would be applied into every aspect of life, not just helping caregivers, but it's not, unfortunately, as much as it should be. But I feel like this is the way that I can help others with my specialty and my experience in education. And, if I'm able to, I will. So that's the answer to your question. It's just, however I can find new ways to help people, I'm always looking for a way to make a difference.
I love doing these open mics and just the shows in general because you're able to talk to such creatives that take their fear and they mold it into hope and spread the word, and they show their vulnerability. They're not afraid to expose the icky and the ugly and say, okay, how do we dance with this and get back to our beauty and our joy?
Right.
And so much of that is the culprit of stigmas and lies and mistruths and lack of education, or some people will probably slap me upside the head, but what I call the good old boys is we've always done it this way, so this is how we're going to
Right.
do it. And they don't want to change. They don't want to look at the realities of things. And for me, I guess I have found, and I think both of you probably would agree with this, that yeah, the journey is difficult, but there's always a lesson. And the lessons to me always bring us simplicity. I sit back and I go, you know what? It's not as difficult as what I was told it was going to be when I changed my mindset to one of a heart set.
Mm.
And to me, that's, such an important thing. And we'll never have too many voices talking about that. And everybody will listen to somebody a little bit different, who they resonate with, or they'll listen to multiple people and they kind of hear the same thing, but in a different way. And so it keeps mounting and it keeps making things a little bit easier, I think, for others to step into. And I think that's so critical to do. Lance, you had mentioned, and so did Jeanette, about the doctor and getting that diagnosis and then really not, now what do I do? Jeanette had rolled into the 1-800 number with the Alzheimer's Association, and thank God that was there. And I've heard wonderful things about that, but there's so much more that's needed than just a hotline when you're in crisis. You need to be able to live graciously throughout. And that's one of the things that I love is, like Lance with your book, that you wrote, and Jeanette with your book, and I've got one too. Those can all be little handbooks in different fashions for people. So when they hear these stories about going to the doctor and not getting resources, they have other outlets to be able to find it. They can go to Facebook. You can Google, but Google can get a little scary too. And when you're new, you don't even know what to Google for. Right. And stuff. So Lance, talk a little bit about your book, because, and I know it's not all dementia specific, but, to me, one of the things I think that brought to light for me is caregiving. And yeah, you got to tweak it here and there, but it's all about kindness and dignity, and really serving someone else, to help them live better, but then to help you live alongside it as well. And it's kind of like buying a house. Everybody evaluates things using the same tools, but they come out with a different product, and that's kind of what I see. Like with your book, you can use it for all different types of situations, but so much of it overlaps.
Absolutely. I consider it a roadmap. I think you and I may have talked about this before. If I'm pulling out of my driveway in Michigan and I'm heading to Minnesota or, North Carolina or Texas, I need to know what I need to know how to get on the right path, But even though if I'm halfway there, that doesn't mean I don't need the map anymore. You still need the map no matter what until you get to your destination. And the book was really written in that kind of context. You could be just starting out in your caregiving journey, and this map will help me from day one, from identifying maybe my loved one does need help and there's something more going on, to the middle to the end of caregiving. And no matter where you're at on that journey, I wanted it to be helpful to any caregiver. And, like you said, it's not dementia specific, but it's caregiver specific. We facilitate multiple caregiver support groups here in Michigan. And, sometimes people ask, oh, is this for people with dementia or Parkinson's or, whatever the case may be? And we say it's not disease specific or condition specific. It's caregiver specific, because for me, one of the biggest things, self-care should be number one as a family caregiver, but I also feel like maybe my 1B would be knowing you're not alone and not feeling isolated, and, that you're the only one going through it. I think having support in a group with common, people with common situations is very beneficial. It's not going to solve your issue. You're still going to be a caregiver when you leave the group, but when you're going through it, you need those people that understand intimately what you're going through. It may not be the same condition. You might be taking care of a mother, and the person you connect with might be taking care of a wife, but you're both a caregiver and you can at least relate on a level to some degree more so than a friend who, you've known since high school, but they haven't had to be a caregiver yet. Their mom and dad is healthy and their spouse is healthy, and having that feeling of almost unity and camaraderie, if you will. It gives you that support, on those tougher, more difficult days, but it also gives you that support to celebrate the good days. We were able to get out of the house today and make it to church on time, or, maybe it's a rough night, and, calling somebody that's been there and gone through it, I think really can help a lot more than just calling somebody, that hasn't a good understanding like a caregiver would.
Well, I think so often families get frustrated with one another going, I can't talk to my family. They don't get it because they're not here enough. And when they show up for a half an hour, everything looks peachy and they
Right.
think I'm crazy, but they don't stay the day. So they don't know. And I think the point of taking away that loneliness, we can't fix it, but we can support it. And there's such beautiful ease through the journey of knowing that you're not alone, and realizing that we have much more in common than is different. And I'll never ever forget this. I was doing a screening of a film, A Timeless Love, and a woman walked in and she was really, really frustrated. Her mom lived in a home, and the staff said hi to her, and she literally said, "I wish she was dead." And she walked past. She was extremely frustrated. And the staff said, "I'll be right back. I'm going to go talk to her." And I'm like, okay. And she came back and she said, one of two things are going to happen. She is going to get up and leave and probably put up a stink during the middle of the show, or she's going to stick around and give you a hard time. And I said, I can handle either. That's fine. I understand the emotion, and it's safe to have those emotions. And so we watch the film, and we always do a talk back. And I always start first showing my vulnerability so that they can share their vulnerabilities of who did they see in the film, and, those types of things. And I went to her last and I said, "What did you think?" And she sat there with a big smile on her face. And she said, "I finally don't feel alone." She didn't think anyone else in the world understood what she was going through. And I don't care if it's a support group, a film, a book, whatever it is, if we can pull that out of someone, pull out that angst and then fill it with a sense of community, that others have survived this and can teach me how to do better, because there's usually so much guilt. What a gift to the world, and what a gift to ourselves to share that gift, with others. And I think we don't put enough emphasis on that sometimes. Everybody wants a pill and they want a cure. And I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't want that, but we need to help people right now in the moment that they're living.
Absolutely.
And to me that's massively huge. And you do such a nice job, Lance, with all of the multiples you do in terms of lifting other people's voices up, and collaborations that you do. Jeanette, same with you. And Michelle, you're not afraid to pull in other people. I don't think any of us can do this alone, even those who people look at us and go, well, you're the expert, you're the influencer. None of us know it all. None of us never
Right.
will, because it's constantly changing and it's fluid. And, when we step into that fluidity, to me, that's where the magic happens. That's where we're saying, this worked, but I think we can tweak it and make it even a little bit better. Or this didn't work, and, we really need to switch gears. And there's no shame in either of those. It's about meeting the actual need versus meeting a concept, or a reality that's only in our mind or on a piece of paper for a grant. We need to be able to change to meet the actual need of the people that we stepped up and stepped in to help. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things that I found. I was introduced to a young lady yesterday, and I was introduced to her by a friend, just who follows me on Facebook, and we were having lunch yesterday, and she brought a friend along, and I was saying, oh, I didn't know we were bringing friends along, but I was glad to meet the young lady, and she came prepared to meet me. She had a folder and her business card, and so she has a company called Rooted in Dignity, and that she is out advocating for families to think about end of life. And those definitely with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, because families don't even want to talk about that. And so she found a definite need in some of her personal experiences, and people coming to her uh, asking about how do you deal with grief and how do you prepare for what's to come. And so she has started her nonprofit, and so we found a common place where we can come and partnership to help caregivers or anyone to think about end of life, because we don't even think about that. By the time I thought about, let's say, a long-term care insurance for my husband, it was too late, because he would never be able to pass the cognitive exam. So if it didn't help my husband, it can help my children now, or it can help my children's children. Now you can go on and get it now where your premiums will be low and affordable. So if this ever happens to you, it's like car insurance. You may never ever have an accident in life, but in case you do, it's covered. So I mean, just talking to people, you'll find that there are people out there that you can connect with and make our advocacy more impactful, and spread it along more highways and byways, if you may say, so that we can really be an effective entity, effective businesses doing the same thing. And that's to help caregivers get through this journey, where they think they're all by themselves.
well, and like what Lance was saying, he focuses kind of on caregivers as a whole, not just dementia. But I think sometimes we get so siloed that we think, well, if you're not dementia related, then there's nothing we can do. And it's like, oh no, because everyone with dementia still has a full life, and everyone caring for them still has
Absolutely.
a full life. And so all of these things come into play in one fashion or another. And again, we can learn from one another and make it easier. I love all these conversations that are happening now about death and dying and what I call smart living. You want control of your life while you're cognitively able. Why wouldn't you when you're not, or when you're incapacitated? Why would you not want to let people know your wants and dislikes ahead of time? Why are we so afraid of that? None of us are getting out of here alive. We all know that. I mean, we know that is a fact. Even though people are living longer, sooner or later it's going to happen. So I just don't I don't understand where all the fear comes from sometimes. And there's times I kind of want to go down the rabbit hole and track it down and go, where did all of these myths come from that have us so scared and so just paralyzed to make good decisions, and then when you have these conversations, you find fascinating things out. You hear about, what somebody wants, like, oh, I never thought of that. I didn't even know that was possible, and your head kind of cocks and you're like, oh, and it opens up another door. And so I think when, through collaborations, we can really help people see big picture and breathe easier and live more fully.
Yeah.
With that.
That kind of reminds me, Lori, of our conscious caregiving episode, end of life care and seniors. We had a couple of just phenomenal pastors on. And, I'd like to ask Pastor Jeanette a quick question, even though this is Lori's show right now.
Sure.
One of the things for me is, I feel like the church has a pivotal role and gap that they could play in this whole space with senior care. It would help with, some of those questions about death and dying. It could help with end of life, treatment or lack thereof, all these different things, but also supporting their members and their communities. I'm just curious, Pastor Jeanette, in your community where you're at, are you kind of the exception or are you the rule? Do you see a lot of pastors and churches kind of filling this void? Because before you answer, like one of the churches I'm very familiar with, they'll have a Celebrate Recovery group, for recovering addicts. They have a grief support group for after a loved one passes, but they don't have anything before the loved one passes. And so I actually teach a class on Wednesday nights for caregivers and their loved ones, because even though grief support is good for when the person passes on, you still have that anticipatory grief, not knowing when, how, or where, and all the other stuff that comes with it. And I just don't understand, at least in my area, it doesn't seem like churches take a very strong lead in this area, and I don't understand why.
Let me tell you, you hit the nail on the head. Because that is another one of my advocacies. I joined an organization called Alter, and Alter was founded by Dr. Fayrod Epps out of Atlanta, Georgia. And her whole goal and purpose is to make churches dementia friendly.
Yeah.
Because we do have in our congregations people who are sitting out there that may be living with dementia, or a caregiver who brought their loved one to church that had dementia. There's no one in the church building that knows how to handle it if that person with dementia has an outbreak, or, we're so busy judging and looking and trying to analyze what's wrong with the person, we don't realize that's the person. So what we do is, I am a partner with Alter, and I am out advocating for churches and pastors to make their churches dementia friendly, to form a senior ministry, if you don't have one, to take care of your senior members who may be caregivers. The church itself need to be educated and trained on how to be caregivers within the church. You have a usher board, or you have some other ministry, they should be trained on how to help a caregiver who's coming for worship to care for that person that they have brought that may need your assistance. So as a matter of fact, last week I sent out 20 letters to 20 churches, pastors that I know, asking them to incorporate in one of their worships. We call it Purple Sunday. And at that Purple Sunday, I would like to talk about my book, which it will help someone that may be going through that, but also to talk about them training their ministry or starting that senior care ministry to be included in their ministry community. Most oftentimes, when members are missing from the church, half the time the pastor doesn't even remember that the person was a member. I've seen people in long-term care facilities or at home, they don't get a visit, they don't get a call, they don't talk to the caregiver to see how they're getting along, or how can the church help in that way. So we need our volunteers in our churches to be trained as caregivers. So yeah, we're talking about outreach. So if my church has someone trained to take care of a person who, and because I'm specific to Alzheimer's or dementia, you have someone in your church that's trained in that area. I can depend on my church to send that person out to give me a helping hand so that I can take some self-care as a caregiver myself. So yeah, we're working hard on that. And I'm so proud to say that last night I got a text from the first lady of a church that I sent one of the letters to say we will be doing a Purple Sunday in November doing Caregiver Month. So I think when we take the initiative to reach out to educate, because I don't think they're thinking.
Right.
They're not thinking outside the box. I think when we take the initiative, those of us who are out working to make sure that this information is disseminated to all of our constituencies, then they will respond. Making it making the churches dementia friendly or caregiver friendly. And we have to be inclusive, So yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things too that I see a lot is, not everybody has a care partner. There's a lot of people living alone. And their church was kind of their core community, and now maybe they can't get there. But no one reaches out and says, "Can I pick you up?" I mean, when I was a kid, every family did that. We were shoveling, we were cutting grass, we were giving rides, we were going to the store. That was just something everybody did, and it seems like that's like just evaporated now. And I just find that so sad. And I know that things have kind of gotten over micromanaged, and everyone's got to have the right insurance, and everyone's got to be trained, and everyone's got to be this. And, it's like, what happened to just being a friend?
Right.
What happened to just being a good neighbor and a good person? But everything's gotten so litigious, over the years and stuff. It saddens me. I also will give a couple of examples. One, I'll never forget. I was speaking to a big alumni group here in the University of Minnesota, and I was talking about memory cafes, and someone in the back raised their hand, and they were so proud because their church had a memory cafe, and they said, "And we have it in the basement so no one will know."
Mm.
No. You don't need to hide this away, And they were so proud, and I was proud that they wanted to do this, but to me, it was a misstep to pretend like they didn't exist, because then you're not allowing the rest of your congregation to see that this is a need, how they could maybe help, or maybe how they could step in and get help themselves, when we stash it away. The other thing was, I was out speaking to, I can't remember if it was a Rotary group or Kiwanis or whatever, talking with people, and again, people just don't even think of this concept. And they mentioned a couple of people in their group that no longer come to the group anymore because they've got some cognitive issues. And I just asked, has anyone called and said, come pick you up? Because they were all talking how much they miss this person.
Yeah.
And they all looked at like one another like, how did none of us think of that? And it was just such a simple thing. But I think we've been pitched that, when you get this label, you're at the very end stages. And there's so many, progressive levels in this. And there's still ways to communicate at all different levels. And to me, that's one of our biggest points that we have to make in terms of educating people, is removing that fear, instead of just saying they're end stages, they won't remember you anyway, so don't bother. And I remember when I was 13, that was what everyone was saying. This is just what happens when you get old, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I'm just like, no, this is wrong on a lot of levels. Even if someone is in their end stages, I found with my mom, there were beautiful ways to be able to communicate that I learned myself, because nobody taught me, how to do that, and the levels of unconditional love. I think we all bring so much to the table in different ways through our journey. And, I just, like I said, I love doing these shows, being able to hear, how people are approaching things. And and typically I always almost can hear the mind spinning because of every one of my guests, because they like don't just stop at one thing. They're always looking at doing other things and trying to improve. And I just find that really exhilarating myself. And I hope our audience does as well, and encourages them to step up and do whatever they're comfortable with. Like, and you guys probably have examples of this too. I remember somebody going, well, I couldn't do that. I just like to knit, and it's like, well, what about a prayer shawl? Well, I could do prayer shawls. I could do mittens. I could do hats. Well, people need all of those things,
Yeah.
to be part. And they were like so thrilled. They never thought of using something that they love to do and that they're good at and how to apply it. So I think so often it's just a simple voice that welcomes them in to be their authentic self and share their gifts in their unique way.
I think as caregivers, though, we must learn how to reach out and ask for help,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes people are feeling that they're intruding, or they don't want to step over the boundaries. But we as caregivers, we sit back and we try to judge or say what we expect from other people or from our family, what this child is not doing, or this sister or brother is not doing. Uh, and maybe the sister and brother or child just cannot bear to see their loved one in the condition that they're in. And that's the reason that they've not stepped up. But if you as a caregiver say, well, you don't have to be here to do this hands-on, but can you stop by the grocery store and leave it on the stoop? Or like you say, can you go buy some gloves? Or can you just uh, maybe send an Uber for us to, go to the doctor's office? Or even at your church, if they forgot you, don't you forget them either.
Right.
Call and ask if you have a ministry or if you have a support group that can come in to help you, or do you have resource information that you can give? We sometimes just sit and wait and frustrate ourselves when somebody's out there waiting for us to ask. So I found that as I even in my book I talk about early on, my looking at each one of my children, feeling that they had not stepped up to do what I thought that they should do. I thought that they should be doing more, and I was the one that was doing it all. And then I realized that my son lives out of state, and he did not call the way I thought he could call, because his dad was his partner, the person that he talked to every day. My husband was a physician. My son is a pharmaceutical rep. So they had this conversation about medicine together that only he and his dad, had that bond. Well, when he didn't have that with his dad anymore, and his dad could not coherently hold a conversation, he wouldn't want to call, because he didn't want to hear his dad lose his train of thought and not be able to communicate the way they did. So once I learned that, then I then was able to let them be who they are and do what they could do uh, at their own, space in their own time. So, we learn a lot, and that's how we can help people to get over some of the frustrations that they have during their caregiving journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lance, anything you want to add to that at all? Or
I would just piggyback on what Pastor Jeanette said. Just because your parent, your life, whoever your loved one is, needs help doesn't mean you're not able to help them. A son probably doesn't want to bathe, toilet, dress, and groom his mother, but he could help coordinate doctor's appointments, refill prescriptions, set up the prescriptions for her, weekly intake. There's a number of things family and siblings can do to support their loved ones and support the other siblings who might be the more boots on the ground in-person care provider. There's a lot of things to do, but just try to keep it harmonious and don't create more strife and guilt and, conflict. And like Pastor said, sometimes the child can't bring themselves to have that image in their mind, or, that lasting last image of a dad or a mother in the condition that they're in. That's okay. And we need to respect that too. But there's other things they can do off site without having to have direct interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've learned to tell people as we are stepping away, or our expectations of our loved one who's living with Alzheimer's and dementia, we have to step into their world. I
Yeah.
said, my husband was in this world all his life, 75 plus years. Now it was time for us to step into this new world and try to navigate how he sees the world today. And once we do that, we'll find that, okay, I can do this. I understand what you're saying, dear, when you are looking at me and I can tell in his eyes when he's hungry. I got you. I understand. And so it just made me feel that I was doing exactly what I was called to do, the way God called me to do it in this new world that I was being placed in. And so, people are finding, okay, yeah, I understand now. I'll step into my loved one's world, and the person is still a person. You don't leave them just sitting and idle and doing nothing because, like you said, Lori, they're not going to remember anyway. No, I made up a card game to play with my husband. I didn't know what he was doing, but I didn't care what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, so I followed his lead, and I saw that he was enjoying that. It's just so much that you can do in that world to make that journey, memories that you're making, memories that now I can talk about what we did, and I can laugh about some of the stuff that I did wrong and how he responded to that in his world. Yeah.
Well, and don't you find too that anyways, I did the more my mom progressed, the simpler things became, but the more ingrained in my heart they became too. So it could just be, the remembering of a twinkle of the eye or a giggle or a touch or a kiss or a hug. They just meant so much more than when life was big and full and busy. They weren't one of many. They were like, one of, wow, I had this touch point, and I haven't seen that or I haven't felt that in a long time. And it just kind of brings you alive again and calms you down, I find. And I think there's great beauty in what you were talking about, kind of the multi-sensory. I could look in his eyes and go, okay, I know you're hungry. I'm on that. We don't have to use words all the time, but it seems like when disease comes into play, we almost mandate that more. And that's really sad because it skews the picture, and it slices the joy out of the picture because there's so many other aspects that bring joy into our lives.
And that's the reason why caregivers need training, so that they could talk about the olfactory sensory, the gustatory sensory, all those other things, the pictures that you show, the smells of baking food or making food that loved one may have loved, and those senses have not gone anywhere, so it may bring a smile on their face. It's so much more that we can do to make it just easy for yourself and enjoyable for however long your loved one may be living with this. I mean, like I said, it could be a day, it could be 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I would rather do that and give my husband 10 years than just to let him sit and, dwindle away because he's not using any of his cognitive memory at all, and surely you don't use it, they'll die,
Mm.
Lance, any last words you wanna leave our audience with? I definitely want you to tell them how to connect with you. But
well, my words of wisdom are, you're not alone. But during this journey, however long it is it hours? Is it weeks? Is it years? You need to make sure you prioritize your own self-care. Take care of your health so that you are able to take care of your loved one for as long as that time may be. And I'd also like to just say thank you to Lori La Bey, my hero and my Mount Rushmore of dementia educators. Always great to see you, Lori. And anybody that's interested, please visit us at allhomecarematters.com. We have all of our shows there, Conscious Caregiving, All Home Care Matters, and the Caregiver's Journal. And they're all broken up by resource category. So there's something for everyone and a lot of great information and a lot of good resources on the website.
Do you want to mention the dementia resources particular?
Thank you, Lori. I always forget to include that. We had taken over Dementia TLC just about a year ago. There's a whole section on the website. It's over 250 some pages. Alzheimer Speaks is there. Dementia Map is there. Just a wealth of information and resources, dementia specific, that hopefully will help a family caregiver on their journey.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jeanette, how about you? Any last words of wisdom?
Oh, just one of the things I would love to tell the caregivers is to make sure you take care of yourself. Self-care is so important. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your loved one. And so you want to make sure that you give yourself a break and make sure that you know that you can talk to someone. I found that talking to a therapist, even though that's what I do, is counsel and coach. You can't coach or counsel yourself, so you can go outside and find help. And you can find all of our stuff that we do. We have not even been in existence a year yet, so I'm proud to say that we have done a lot, and all of these people that I'm meeting that we can partner with to just keep this going. If a person wants to, definitely contact us to see what we do and how they can be an integral part of what we're doing. They can go to our website is dementiada.org, and it gives you a wealth of information as how to contact us. I thank you, Lori La Bey, again. I appreciate your always being there for us to help us on our journey and to help us to get the word out through all the works that you do. I will definitely tell Michelle that she was missed, and that but we are encouraged to keep doing what we're doing.
Oh yeah, it's just so much fun. It's so exciting to see everything everyone is doing. And every time, I talk with people, things are constantly changing. People are adding new things. So again, check out Lance. He's got a couple of websites, Lance A. Slatton, as well as All Home Care Matters. And then for Michelle and for Jeanette, you can go to that dementiada.org and find them as well. And again, thank you so much both for your time today and sharing all the beautiful work that you're doing. And to our audience, I always ask you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share. Don't keep this information a secret. If you belong to a church, tell them about, that they can become dementia friendly, and they can reach out to Jeanette and her crew or the altar. If you've got, people can reach out to Lance. He's just a marvelous, marvelous resource on so many different levels. It just doesn't end. The more we lift one another up, the better off everyone will be, and the more prepared we'll be. We can take the scary out of this journey and bring us together. So again, thank you all for your time today. I look forward to having you back on the show and learning more next time. See what you're up to.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Lance. Nice meeting you.
Have a good day.
God bless you.
You as well, Pastor. Thank you.
Well, hi, I'm Lori La Bey, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.